Hi you guys. I know I don't really normally post on YouTube, but my heart is just really driven right now to make this video, so I'm gonna make this video. I kind of wanted to share my testimony. Um, I have not really shared my testimony with pretty much anyone since it's all really happened. It's super emotional for me, and it's really hard to talk about because, I feel a lot of shame for some of the decisions that I've made and a lot of regret for some of the things I did, but I know that we all make decisions and we all do things that maybe aren't exactly right. So this is me just kind of sharing my testimony, and I was really nervous to do it, but I watched a bunch of testimony videos before I even decided to do it, and so many different people had very similar experiences, so it was really encouraging to know that I'm not the only one. Don't want to make this intro too long, so I'm just gonna start. 3 years ago on Halloween, which is ironic because it's almost Halloween now, I was hanging out with some friends and we ended up taking some acid. So at that point in my life, I was really into like chakras and meditation and new age stuff like that. And everyone always said that, acid wasn't bad for you, and, just take some acid, it'll help your third eye open and you'll be so woke. And so on Halloween we took some acid and everything was going good. Me and my two other friends are sitting there, and then all of a sudden, like, I just have this feeling like I want to kill myself, but I'm not depressed. Like, I just feel really pushed. Like if you kill yourself, like, there's so much more after you die. Like, it's so magical. Like, just do it. Just kill yourself. Like, you're so above this world. Like, move on to the next level. So I'm not freaked out about it. I just kind of brush it off. And one of the friends that I'm sitting with, it's me and two other people, I'm thinking all of this, and my friend all of a sudden speaks out loud and is like, so we all want to kill ourselves. And at that point I realized that we have all been telepathically communicating, and it was real because no one had spoken out loud before this person decided to say something. And I start freaking out, and like, it's not even necessarily like a bad freak out. I'm just like, this is so cool. Like, there's so much, like, it was almost like proof, like, oh, there's something after death. Like, this is so awesome. Like, we're so cool. And like, it was almost like an ego boost. I just felt like so above everyone else. And so me and my boyfriend at the time, we go out back, and all of a sudden I see like the molecular structure of his skin, and I'm about to say something about it, and he says something about how he sees it on me, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, let's kill ourselves. Like, let's do this. Like, why are we here? And then I start thinking about how I grew up, and how I grew up in a Christian home, and I start thinking about God and how God feels about suicide, and what that would do to my family, and I catch myself and I stop and I'm like, wait, there's other people besides myself. And like, in my heart it didn't feel right. I was like, why would something ever want me to kill myself? So we were all gonna do it, and I opted out. I was like we were all gonna do it together. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I have a family that I love. Like, in my heart, like, I don't think that's what God would want me to do. So we don't do it. And we hang out at the house, we stay the night, we're get the stuff out of our system. Everyone's perfectly fine. It's the next day, it's kind of like afternoon, and we go to drive our friend home, and as we're driving, I have a full-blown vision. As we're driving, the stoplight turns off, the radio cuts out, and all of a sudden my boyfriend at the time grabs my hand and says, "Baby, it's happening," and the car starts shifting backwards and tilting, and the whole entire earth is just sliding. Everything is sliding back and back and back. And I start to freak out, and I realize that the two people that are in the car are not freaking out. Everything's perfectly fine. And all of a sudden I come to and I look around and everything's normal. But it was like it actually happened in real life, and it was the next day, like, so my friend was like, "Hey, I read a book. There's this book, and in the book it talks about how, like, you'll see visions of the earth tilting, and, like, it's just something about how, like, humanity's elevating their, like, third eye, and, like, when you see that, like, you're, like, a part of the," it was like a cult, I don't even know. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's what I experienced is in a book. Like, there's proof that what I experienced is real. Like, I want this book. I want to read this book. Like, that is so cool. So I got this book, and it basically talked about how, like, we're all God, and if you're really woke, like, you'll see this vision. And I saw this vision, and I was like, I've never had proof of anything in the Bible. I've never had proof of anything to do with Jesus, but I have proof. I had proof, like, I experienced this, of that. And I was like, this is real. This is the Bible. Like, I held on to this book, and I loved it. So I started to practice, healing on people. I would do massage therapy, and I would see animal totems, and then I would tell people what they're doing in their life or what they need to work on, and it was spot on every time. Every single time I would do it, it was right. People would be like, "How did you do that? How did you know that?" And I'm like, I'm just finding my God. Like, I'm elevating my existence, and, like, I was becoming the best me that I could be. And I really fell into this, and as the days go on, I want to say it was a couple months into it, it just didn't sit right. And, like, I even had proof that what I experienced is in a book, like, someone's written about that, and it didn't feel right. So I started to kind of drift away from it. I was like, you know what? No, like, I want to read the Bible. Like, I know I don't have proof of anything in it, but I just want to read the Bible. So I started reading the Bible, and I started kind of really praying to God about it, and I was like, this is bad. Like, this is satanic stuff. Like, this is not anything that I should be involved with. So the more I start to pull out of this stuff, I was also really into the Illuminati. I will touch on that before I get out of this, but during this whole time when I was elevating my soul, I got Illuminati books. I started reading about, like, the women's cults in the Illuminati, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I got into all of this stuff. I thought it was really quite amazing. But then I started to pray and think, sorry, my neighbor walked by, and I'm talking about sensitive subjects, and I just got uncomfortable. But anyways, so I started to pray, and I started to really feel like what I was doing was against God. And as I started to pull away from the stuff that I had experienced, I started to hear voices. And they used to tell me that I would never be forgiven, that I'm going to hell, that I'm not worthy, that I am forsaken, that I'm not allowed in the kingdom of heaven. And at that point, I realized that what I ventured into was wrong, and I started to feel scared. I thought that I was dirty, and I thought I couldn't be saved. And it was horrible. I believed the things that I heard, and I started to have sleep paralysis. I would feel like this high-pitched ringing in my ears, and I would see flashes of, like, a demonic presence, like, coming at me, and I thought I was doomed. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. But slowly, like, God started pulling at my heart and kind of showing me, like, you know, that's not true. That's 100% not true. So, come a couple months later, I'm going back and forth between God and New Age stuff. It's never been kind of set in stone that I'm completely in with the Lord. I just have kind of gone back and forth. I wasn't really sure, but I was still leaning more towards God. So then I go out with my friends. It's Easter, okay? So I decide to take another tab of acid. And that night, you know, I'm having a great old time. As we're driving home, I start to see... Sorry, it's my neighbor. Okay, I'm sorry if I edit this and it seems off. I've just been not wanting to talk about stuff like this in front of people. Even though I'm posting it on the internet, that's weird. So we're driving home and I'm on acid, and everyone took the same amount that I took. Everyone's perfectly fine, and I start to see another vision, and this time it is just of fire and smoke and ash, and it's everywhere, and I can't move my arms or my legs or my body. I can't move anything, but there's just this destruction, and there's just fire falling from the sky and everything. Like, it's super windy and it looks real. It looks like it's actually happening, but I can't open my mouth. I can't move my body. And I get home, and when my boyfriend at the time and I get home and I get out of the car, run inside, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I wake up my mom and dad and I tell them, like, I love you, I'm sorry, like, I don't know, like, it was so real to me. I woke up my parents and told them that I loved them because I thought we were gonna die. And I don't know. I go to my room after that, and I'm sitting there, and I can't sleep. And my whole entire room turns into hell. Yeah, I went to hell. It was horrible. There was like a lava dripping from the ceiling, and there was like lava on the ground, and each person had like a little piece of rock that they could cling onto, but their bodies were in lava, and there's demons everywhere, and they were, you know, saying really horrific things about like rape and sex and lust and anger, and there was just smoke everywhere, and it was horrible. I talked to so many different people, and that had taken what I took that night. I didn't really explain what happened to me, but I was like, hey, like, were you guys okay? And they were like, yeah, like, we were perfectly fine. Like, how many did you take? And I was like, 1. And they were like, oh, like, I took 3 and I was perfectly fine. And it's kind of, that's kind of when it hit me. I was like, heaven is real, hell is real. What I'm doing in my life is wrong, and I need Jesus. I need to change. I need to be saved. There is redemption through Jesus, and I wanted nothing more in my life except for him. I just wanted Jesus more than anything. So my boyfriend at the time and I were moving, but before we moved, we actually we got baptized together. And at that point, I was like, I accept Jesus into my heart, my soul, my mind, everything about me. Like, I want to eat, sleep, breathe Jesus. And I started to see my life change completely. Once I really accepted Jesus into my life and knew that I was saved and knew that I was welcome into the kingdom of heaven, I stopped hearing voices. I stopped having terrifying visions. Kind of forgot to mention that. Like, throughout the day, I would be walking my dog, and then all of a sudden everything would look like it was on fire. Horrible, horrible, horrible visions. Stopped. Completely stopped hearing voices. Completely stopped seeing horrible things. I felt a presence of love. I felt a presence of grace. I just knew, even though what I experienced that was in that little book that I read, even though what I experienced felt so real and so right, blind faith is part of the reason we're here. If you could see it, if you could know it, then what would the challenge be? Where would the faith be? I mean, that's what faith is, and it was a hard concept for me to grasp. And I really learned that the devil can disguise himself as something beautiful. And it's always been really hard for me to talk about. I got really scared for a really long time, especially after what happened on Easter and going to hell. I didn't really leave my house for a while. I felt a lot of fear. I felt a lot of discouragement. I didn't really know what to do with my life. So I started going on mission trips. I started volunteering in the church. I started finding my worth and my happiness through service and through Jesus. And I started to heal. And, you know, I have a 4.0 in college now. I exercise regularly. I take care of my body. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke weed. I don't do drugs. I am a casual drinker with friends, but nothing of any sort of overabundance or addiction. And it's through Him. 110% it is through Him. And one day I was going out to study my Bible, and the night before that, you know, I prayed. I was like, God, I know with all my heart that you're listening, and I know with all my heart that you're there. But just show me that I'm making you happy. Show me that I'm doing what you want of me. And I prayed. I've never prayed with all my soul like that, like ever in my whole entire life. And that night I had a dream that I was sitting in a huge clover patch, and a gold light beamed down, and there was a 4-leaf clover. And I picked the 4-leaf clover. In my dream, I remember there was a little tear in one leaf, and it meant so much to me. And so that morning I woke up and I got my iced tea and my Bible, and I went out to the little park at my apartments, and I'm studying my Bible, and I see clover, and I'm like, hey, I had that dream last night. Like, wouldn't that be really cool if I found a 4-leaf clover? I've always wanted to find a 4-leaf clover, and I've never found one. So I looked down, and the one part of the grass that's sunny, like the gold beam in my dream, there was a 4-leaf clover. And ever since that dream, I have found like 12 4-leaf clovers, and I've never found a 4-leaf clover in my whole entire life. I think it's just like mine and God's thing. Like, I know that He's with me. I know that He loves me. Everyone has their own timing and their own ways of finding the Lord and of gaining a relationship with Him. And just because one thing happens for me in a certain way and it doesn't happen for you in a certain way, like, that's fine. We all have our own testimonies. We all have our own trials and tribulations and the things that we go through. But at the end of the day, I think it's just really important for me to share what I went through. It's really hard to talk about. I am not the person I used to be, and that's great. I mean, I should rejoice in that. Although I regret some of the decisions I made, I think I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't. I guess the main thing behind this video is, just because something is real or true does not mean that it's good. Just because I was able to do animal totem healing work and it was right does not mean that it was something that was good. Does not mean that that information or the things that I received came from the Holy Spirit or came from Jesus. That is not what is always the case. You can get information and you can get things and feelings and interpretations from the devil. You can conjure things into your life that are not of light. And I don't know, the devil is a mass disguise, and he can come across as the most charming, beautiful, wonderful thing, but, really feel it in your soul. Really pray on it. Really, really accept Jesus into your life, and I don't know. I can feel the difference, and I really hope that you can too. As for the book, the crazy book, I burnt it, so no one could ever read it. And I know there's been a lot of stuff going around that, like, we're all one and we're all God. And I guess I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that that's not true. That you have a God that is amazing, that is strong, that is willing, that is merciful, that is great and mighty, and a God that loves you. You have a God that sent his one and only Son to die for you so you can have redemption. And that's amazing, because the life that we live here is a moment. And eternal life is eternity. And I can't stress enough just how amazing the gift of Jesus Christ truly is. So I'm sorry if this video is long. I'm sorry if I seem like really passionate or into it, but it's just a topic that's not easy for me to talk about. This is the first time I've ever really tried to talk about it, so if I seem jumbled or all over the place, I'm sorry. I hope you were able to get something from this. Jesus loves you. Have an amazing day, and just know how incredibly loved you are.